Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming to my virtual presentation on collecting and reporting race and ethnicity in HCI. My name's Chen, and this is joint work with my wonderful collaborators, Angela, Katharina, and Alexandra. Now, for HCI researchers, it's no secret that engaging with the racially and ethnically diverse population of study participants is critical because it will help us create a safe, inclusive, and equitable technology. Just a simple search of the recent HCI publications will give you a bunch of wonderful papers and discussions about why it's important to engage with race and ethnicity. However, despite these abundance in recent discussion, we think that two questions still remain unclear. The first question is that in the status quo, who are even the study participants represented in HCI research, and when are their race and ethnicity information being reported? The second question is, when we are collecting such information, what are some of the considerations a researcher might have that speaks for or against such collection procedure? Now, to answer the first question of who are the study participants in HCI, we conducted a systematic literature analysis of the proceedings of CHI from 2016 to 2021. We started with all the articles in the proceedings available at the ACM Digital Library, followed by a two-step screening procedure. In the first step, we used the automatic tool to screen for the potential candidates, and then we manually track every manuscript after the first stage of screening to see whether they contained detailed race and ethnicity information of their participants. Now, as a result, in our final corpus, we found that less than 3% of the papers published in the last 6 years of CHI have included such detailed race and ethnicity information, and 90% of these papers are actually based in the United States. In addition, if we restrict our attention to US-based studies, they have a similar participants demographics as in the US Census. Lastly, we also found that larger studies, meaning that the studies have more than 100 participants, tend to have more non-Hispanic white participants compared to their smaller counterparts. Feel free to read more about the details of our findings in our paper. Now, moving on to the second questions, what are some considerations for collecting race and ethnicity information? Even though the papers in our final corpus all reported such information, many left their motivation or considerations implicit. Therefore, we actually conducted an additional survey by emailing the first and senior authors of the papers with a list of open-ended questions on why they chose to collect race and ethnicity of their participants. Now, a high-level summary based on the responses of the authors of 15 papers who responded to our survey, the top two reasons being it's important to strengthen the external validity of their study, or their study is largely motivated by prior work, which demonstrate that there is a big difference, for instance, in the uptake of technology in different racial groups. Other reasons include, for instance, serving as a pilot study for future work, or it's required as part of external grant requirements. Now, to conclude, we're actively also investigating as part of a future work, the challenges that one might encounter in decisions around race and ethnicity data collection. So for instance, there might be privacy and legal concerns. There is also not a good set of categories, so to speak, for international studies, where in many countries and regions, race and ethnicity are not being systematically collected and classified. Finally, we also want to draw attention to the fact that even in the countries and regions where these categories do exist, the non-representative categories that are either not granular enough or the categories of classification do not agree with people's self-identification might actually perpetuate further harm rather than promote diversity. Lastly, our work is definitely not a sealed deal. we really want this to be a starting point of a conversation about race and ethnicity data collection in HCI research. So feel free to get into contact if you have any thoughts or feedback about our work. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing from you.